Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. This is our 500th video, and to celebrate, we are going to make homemade Hostess Cupcakes, and this is what they look like. This dessert has 4 parts. It starts with a moist and chocolatey devil's food cupcake. Then we're going to fill it with a cream filling. Then we're going to dunk them in some chocolate ganache, and we're going to do the loop-de-loops in melted white chocolate. These are so good. So the first thing you need to do is to preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. Now this recipe is going to make 18 cupcakes. I only have one muffin pan, a 12 cup. So what I'm going to do is bake 12, and then when they cool, I'll bake the next 6. Now, I don't line my cupcake pan with paper liners because we're going to insert the cream filling from the bottom of the cupcake, so you don't want to use a liner. So what I'm going to do, you can either brush the muffin cups with melted butter, or I'm just using one of these non-stick sprays. And then what I like to do is just take a paper towel or a clean cloth and just wipe any excess spray on the top. And then the first thing we need to do is you will need in a bowl 3/4 of a cup, which is 75 grams of unsweetened cocoa powder. Now you can use either the Dutch process or just the natural unsweetened. And then you will need 1 cup, which is 240 milliliters, 240 grams of, I'm using hot coffee, and we're going to pour that over the cocoa powder, and the hot coffee will dissolve it. And we do this step because it really brings out the cocoa powder's flavor. Now, if you didn't want to use coffee, you could just use hot water. And for the coffee, you can use, I'm just using freshly brewed from this morning, or you could make yourself some instant coffee. So just whisk that until it's all dissolved. And then what I'm going to do is whisk in a 1/2 cup, 120 milliliters or grams of, I'm using a full-fat sour cream. If you don't want to use sour cream or you can't get it, you could use like a creme fraiche, or you could even use a plain yogurt. So I'll just put that in there, along with 2 teaspoons, which is 8 grams of a pure vanilla extract. And the vanilla is for flavoring. You got the cocoa, the chocolate, and then you've got the coffee and vanilla. That's pretty good. So to make your batter, if you have a stand mixer like I have, use your paddle attachment, or you could just use a hand mixer for this. So that looks good. I'm just going to let that sit there and cool down a little because we did use a hot coffee. Now the first thing you will need is 12 tablespoons, which is 170 grams of butter. Have your butter at room temperature. I like to use unsalted. I prefer the flavor, and plus I like to regulate the salt in my recipe. But if you have a favorite salted butter, go ahead and use that. So what I'm going to do is just beat my butter just until it's nice and smooth. And as always, when you're making a batter, or really anything, scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl as much as you need to make sure everything gets mixed together. So now we're going to add 1 1/3 cups, which is 265 grams of granulated white sugar. And then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons, 30 grams of a flavorless oil. That can be like corn, vegetable, canola, safflower, or even a light olive oil. And that's going to really add a little more moisture to our cupcake. And also, if you want to refrigerate your baked cupcakes, the oil will help to keep them nice and soft, even in the refrigerator. So now what I'm going to do is beat this on medium-high speed for say 3-4 minutes. I want it to be really light and fluffy and soft. So say 3-4 minutes, medium-high. Okay. So this is what we're looking for. It's nice and light, it's fluffy, looks beautiful. So now what we're going to do is add 2 large eggs. Have your eggs at room temperature. We're going to add them, add one, beat it in, and then add the second one. If by weight, that would be 100 grams of eggs. Okay, I'm just going to get a bowl of scrape here. So now, in a separate bowl, I have 1½ cups, which is 195 grams of all-purpose flour. You may know that as plain flour. To that, I'm going to add 1 teaspoon, 4 grams of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon, 1 gram of baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon, 2 grams of salt. Now, I'm just going to whisk all these ingredients together. You could sift them as well. Now, if you use the salted butter in this, I would leave out that 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So, now what we're going to do is we're going to add the flour to our batter in 3 additions, and we're going to alternate that with our coffee mixture in 2. It's much easier than if we just dumped everything in at once, and you'd have to beat your batter a little too much if you did it that way. So I'm going to add, about 1/3. Just eyeball that. Have your mixer on low speed when you do this. Okay, and then add about 1/2 of your coffee mixture. Okay. Okay. Some more flour. And rest of the slop there. Rest of my coffee cocoa mixture. These are just so good. Okay. I'm just going to scrape that down, and then I'm going to add the rest, the flour. Okay, so we are done. So I'm just going to, it's a little flour on the sides. I'm just going to mix that in. Now we're going to fill our muffin cups about 3/4 full with our batter. You could, there's a couple ways you could do this. You could just use a ladle. You could even pour this into some kind of pitcher that has like a spout on it, or I'm just using an ice cream scoop that's about the size I need for this. Our last one. Okay. Oh, drop more. So now, everyone's oven is a little different. I find somewhere between maybe 16 and 18, 19 minutes. But what you're looking for, they will rise. If you touch the top of the cupcake, it'll be firm to the touch. And of course, if you put a toothpick into the center, it will just come out clean. I do like to rotate my baking pan front to back about halfway through baking. So somewhere between, say, 16, 18, 19 minutes. So our devil's food cupcakes are done. See, they rose. There is a little bit of cracking. That is perfectly normal. If you touch it, it's firm to the touch, and a toothpick inserted will come out clean. Now put your pan on a wire rack. I'm going to let them cool maybe 5-10 minutes, and then we will take them out of the pan to finish cooling. So to take your cupcakes out of the pan, my pan is non-stick, so I'm using a silicone offset spatula because you don't want to scrape your coating off. So just go around to make sure it's not sticking and then lift it out. So at this point, what you could do is wash your pan and then bake off the rest of your cupcakes. So I'm going to let those finish cooling, so we'll make our cream filling. Now this is like a marshmallow cream. It is soft, it's fluffy, it's so good. So if you have a stand mixer, again, use your paddle attachment. So you will need 1/4 cup, 55 grams of butter. Have your butter at room temperature. And I'm also adding 1/4 cup, 55 grams of vegetable shortening. The shortening, while it's flavorless, what it does add is a really nice soft and fluffy texture to our cream filling. Now, if you don't like to use shortening or can't find it, just replace your shortening with more butter. So now what I'm going to do is just beat these two until they're nice and smooth. Okay. Scrape that. And next I'm going to add 1 cup, which is 120 grams of confectioner sugar. You may know that as powdered or icing sugar. I did sift the sugar to get rid of any lumps. I'm just going to put that right in there, along with 1.5 teaspoons, 6 grams of pure vanilla extract. It's going to give us nice vanilla flavor. So now I'm going to beat this on medium. I'm going to start on slow speed till everything gets mixed together. I'm going to increase to medium high and beat this probably 3-4 minutes. I want to get it nice and light and fluffy, lots of air in there. Okay, so you can see really nice and light and fluffy. So we have one more ingredient. You will need 1/2 cup, which is 120 milliliters or about 170 grams of, I'm using light corn syrup. And that's going to give us, this texture of this cream is going to be so good. Now, if you don't have light corn syrup, you could use golden syrup, or you could even use a liquid glucose. So what I'm going to do is add the corn syrup gradually. I'm going to have my mixer on low speed. I'm going to gradually pour this in and then keep beating it until it's like really nice, thick, kind of like mayonnaise. Okay, so our cream filling is done. As you can see, it's really nice and thick now. So my cupcakes are still a little warm. So I'm going to let those finish cooling, and then when we come back, we will fill our cupcakes with the cream filling. So now to fill our cupcakes with the cream filling, what we're going to do is make a hole in the bottom of each cupcake, like I've done here. So take your cupcake, turn it over. Now you could just use a knife to make a little round hole, but I find it much easier if I take a piping tip. It's a pretty large one. It has about a 1-inch diameter, 2.5 centimeters. So what I do is take that and just put it in the center, push down, kind of turn it, and then I get a hole. You want it to go about 3/4 of an inch deep, you know, maybe 2 centimeters. So what I'm going to do is take my knife and just clean that out to about that. I mean, it doesn't have to be exact. Like so. And then I'm going to take a toothpick, because I get the little, this is what I call like the plug. So it's a little piece. I don't want it very thick, so I'm just going to cut off. And that, once we put the filling in, then we're going to use this to plug up the hole. Pretty cool. A little time consuming, but it's pretty cool. And then if you had if you were doing lots, you could keep these leftover cake crumbs and make some cake pops. So now we have our filling. We're going to pipe our filling in. I find that much easier. So what you want is a plain tip. Mine's about 1/4 of an inch, which is about 1/2 centimeter. I think it's a Wilton number 12. And put it in your piping bag, and then I like to fold that down. And just put some of your cream. Now, if you wanted to do, like, say, you could make the cream ahead of time, a day or two ahead. You could even make your cupcakes, you know, a day or two ahead. So, take like a spatula here to help it get down there. Okay, and then just make sure you get all the air out of your bag. Press down. Okay, and we're ready. Twist your bag in one hand and use this hand as a guide. So what you want to do is just pipe in the filling to fill the hole. Just about like that. And then just take your little plug and plug up the hole. Press it down. It's kind of cool. Because people are going to say, how did you get that cream in there? And that's like so. Just go through and do the rest. And then once we've done that, when we come back, we will make our chocolate ganache and dip our cupcakes. So we're going to dip our cupcakes in chocolate ganache. So you will need to put 6 ounces, which is 170 grams of, I'm using a semi-sweet chocolate, and put that in a heat-proof bowl. You want to coarsely chop your chocolate, or I'm just using these round discs, which is fine. By semi-sweet, I would say like between 55 and 60% cocoa content. So when you go to buy, you can look on, usually it's labeled now. And what I have here is 3/4 of a cup, which is 180 milliliters, 180 grams of heavy whipping cream, and that's cream with a 35 to 40% butterfat content. You want to use heavy cream so that our ganache will set up nice and thick. So we want to heat our cream just to boiling. You can do that in the microwave, or today I'm just doing it in a small saucepan on the stovetop. So either way. Okay, so as you can see, the bubbles are starting around the sides. Take it off because that will foam up on you if you're not careful. And then we're going to just pour that over our chocolate. Yum, yum. And I'm just going to let that sit a minute or two, just so the hot cream can melt the chocolate. So it's been a couple minutes, so take a whisk. Now we don't want to get too much air in here, so we're going to start by just whisking in the center really quickly, round, round, round. As you can see. And then once starts to then, you know, work your way out. Okay, there we go. Okay, that's good. Let's give it a quick stir. Now this is hot, and it's still pretty thin. Thing about with ganache is as it cools, it will thicken. So what we want is a little thicker than this, as you can see. Plus it's too hot to dip our cupcakes. So what I'm going to do is just let this sit on the counter till it cools down, and then we will start dipping our cupcakes. Okay, so there's our ganache, cooled down a bit. So what I'm going to do is just transfer it to a smaller bowl because we're going to dunk our cupcakes into the ganache. So it's better to have it deeper, the chocolate. And now, so what we're going to do is just take our cupcake and just dunk it in. Just the top. Kind of make sure all the way around. Hold it up, let the excess drip off. And there we have it. It's gorgeous. Oh, I'm going to put it on here. So what I'm going to do is just keep dipping all of them. And then put your cupcakes on a tray, and we're going to put them into the refrigerator for about 15 to 30 minutes, just so that the ganache firms up a bit. And then when we come back, we will make our little squiggles on top. So I did chill my cupcakes. If you had any leftover chocolate ganache, what you could do is just chill it and then roll it into little balls, and you have chocolate truffles. So now, for our top of our cupcakes, I'm using white chocolate. Now, if you had leftover vanilla cream filling, you could use that to make the little loop-de-loops, but we are going to use white chocolate. So what I have here is about 1.5 ounces, which is 45 grams of white chocolate. I just melted it, cut it into small pieces, and I just melted it in the microwave. But be very careful when you do that. You want short bursts, take it out, give it a really good stir because it melts very quickly. And it's quite delicate white chocolate, so you don't want to burn it. The other option is to have a saucepan of simmering water, put it in a heat-proof bowl, and melt it over that. So, got some options there. So now, what I have is a pastry bag, fitted with a really small tip. This is a Wilton number 4. You could use number 3, number 4. Or you could just take a little Ziploc bag and cut off the corner. And then I'm just going to put this in a cup, make it easier. Put that in there. And then out. Just take a flat edge just to get that down, try to get the air out. So now, if you buy a commercially made Hostess cupcake, they have, I think it's 7 loop-de-loops. You can do 7. I usually do 4. Because my cupcakes aren't that big. So what you want to do is I'll just see how good we can do this. So take one and it's not perfect, but you know, we'll work on it. So what you want to do is just do all of them and then put it back into the refrigerator. That one I did 5. That's a little better. That one, I think that's Cook's Treat. So what you want to do is do all that, then put them back into the refrigerator until that sets up, and then you're ready to go. So that's what we'll do. So there we have it, our homemade Hostess cupcake. There's a little condensation. I just took it out of the fridge, and let's cut into it. I think they're just so pretty. And oh, pretty cool. So let's try some. That's good. You have a devil's food cupcake. It's moist. Oh, so wonderfully moist. And that cocoa powder gives it such a great chocolate flavor. And then the cream filling. I think because you know the cupcake is quite sharp. It's got a really good chocolate flavor. So I think that cream filling really offsets the chocolate. And then the chocolate ganache, what can I say? I mean, it's so good. Another bit of chocolate. And then the decoration, of course. Like I said, you could use the cream filling if you didn't want to bother using the melted white chocolate. Either way, you know, these are a celebration cupcake. Everyone loves them. You have to try them. And until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joyabaking.com.